All right, strap on your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready for another Medtech podcast. My name is Mike Sperduti, and I am going to be your host today. And joined with me today is two just fantastic experts in our industry, Barbara Strain and Scott Alexander. And we are the MedTech experts. All right, so everybody's probably got a few extra pounds on them. We probably celebrated a lot, which I know I did, and I hope everybody else did, and I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday season. But, as executives and leaders, we come back into 2025. The number goes back to zero. We all have plans that we need to hit. And no matter whether last year was a good year or a bad year, we're either going to build on the momentum of success if we had a good year, or we got to fix what we didn't do in 24 to make it a successful 25. And with that being said, we thought in our respective areas of expertise, we should really help you guys out there with what's working really well that nobody's doing except for our clients. And then what's not working that we're seeing people just waste time, effort, money, and resources that they should stop. So again, we have three different areas that we're going to focus in on. We're going to focus in on digital marketing. We're going to focus in on value analysis, and we're going to focus in on inside sales. So I guess, Scott, Barbara, welcome to the conversation.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Good to be here, Mike.
Thank you. Happy to be hosting you guys today. I'm usually on the other side, and Scott, you usually do the honors. So happy to do it. Hopefully, I'll fill your shoes. So I guess why don't we start from the beginning? We'll start with value analysis, right? Because if you don't know how to bring value, right, that's the number one thing that people are going to want to hear, right? What are you going to do that I'm not doing already, and what value are we going to bring? So, Barbara, let's start with the what not to do's, right? So, what are the what not to do's, right? What are the things that people are doing more and more of, but they're getting less and less a return? That's just something we need to stop.
They're really not focusing their marketing and how they're doing their sales outreach and things to the right segment of like the country or the right segment of healthcare institutions. And then they're not really understanding how to find the right one or two individuals in those organizations. So when I look at data that's market leading data and things, and it says the Southeast is really ripe for this type of interventions, technology, whatever it is, people aren't concentrating there. They're doing a whole a shotgun solution. So they really need to focus in on their resources in the right places to get inside, to talk to someone and have that value conversation.
And Scott, I see you're shaking your head there. Anything you want to expand upon?
Violent agreement. Yeah, I think the resource piece in particular is really interesting because I think what we still see a lot of legacy companies that think that the go-to-market strategy is to just like go hire a bunch of reps. And I spent most of this week with a client of ours that I think are like, all of us know them. They're super, super brilliant people. And they've made the concerted effort not to hire geography-based sales professionals. And for two reasons. Number one, we're on Zoom right now when we're recording this. This is how we've interacted every single time that we've done it. We've been doing this for years. We have relationships. This is what people are used to. And so you don't have to necessarily be in front of somebody in order to be able to get a sales call, right? So that's one big shift that we've seen. And additionally, you really don't know where those opportunities are going to come up, right? If you think about how you're trying to grow your business, particularly if you're earlier stage, you may not have a huge footprint. You may not know if your next deal is going to come from Texas or Idaho. And so if you're hiring geography-based resources, you're constraining yourselves. And to Barbara, to your point, it's better to go and figure out who's interested and then digitally like we're doing right now, fly in, things like that, park people for periods of time, use a fractional organization to help with conversions or training. Like that's the model that we're seeing work. And it's still like you still see people who are like, I got to go hire somebody in Tennessee, and like maybe you don't. So anyway, that's just kind of reacting, Barbara, to what you had said.
Interesting. And I guess, Barbara, I can hear people in the audience right now saying, yeah, but my solution can help everybody. I mean, I'm good everywhere. And so, how do you fight that mentality? Like, why are there certain regions that would adopt a certain technology over another?
It has to do with patient mix. It
Mhm.
has to do with culture of the organizations. It has to do with money and availability. And it really has to do with, do I actually have physicians, surgeons, radiologists, nurses that even know how to take care of these patients? Do I not even have a lot of these resources to make it all work? So someone could have the best thing, and I said this earlier when we were chit-chatting, is I don't use the word revolutionary very much. So I reserve it. So when I say revolutionary, but you have to have the right situation for
Mhm.
that to take place. So there's just all that litany of things. And so they
Got me
have
all
to know
excited.
how to wage all those things and
Yeah.
then take the leap.
And to build on that, Barbara, I'm just going to be like, I'm going to be your yes man all day. He's like, yes, what she said. And um, here's the truth of the matter is that often the organizations you think are most innovative are not the most innovative. So if we think back to like our time when we were in industry, right, launching a product or whatever, we'd go to University of fill in the blank and like hammer hard on like what's it going to take to get Cleveland Clinic to buy this thing. And then, you know, it would work eventually, but like your time to peak revenue, it would be much, much longer. And what we see now is you can be more using digital media, other things, you can be more um, you can cover the country in a bigger way and then look for the people that are interested in leaning into whatever innovation you have. And then that makes your sales process easier because you're not pushing a rock up the hill. It's more like you got a champion who's like, I want this in my health system. And then they're making it happen, which ultimately is what you want, right? But it may not, it may be more of a community setting. It may be Mercy instead of BJC, right here in St. Louis, as an example. But that's not how we've historically run the business.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about digital marketing after this, but one of the things about digital marketing, when you get an inbound lead from a Facebook ad or a LinkedIn post or whatever it is, and somebody raises their hand and said, "I've looked at that content,
Mhm.
and that's interesting to me," and they say, "Please reach out to me."
Mhm.
That's a lot easier to sell. As a salesman, to me, that's a ground ball first, right? I mean, that's
Right.
over,
Yep.
easy, done. Whereas when you do outbound, right, you're going out trying to pull people in, and obviously that's a big skill, and there's a much higher degree of rejection doing that. When
Mhm.
in essence, when somebody raises their hand, I'm interested, they're interested.
Yes. Yeah.
And Mike, you make the most excellent point because I think healthcare providers feel like they're being bombarded with all of these, oh, pick me, type situations. But how are they reaching out? So I'm kind of talking to both sides here. Is normally they either reach out through their GPO contacts or they reach out to, if they're doing their own RFPs locally or something. Otherwise, how are they reaching out? Do we have like something like, Tinder or something and we can make matches? I'm just throwing that out there. Someone's going to make an app now and we'll have it, next week because Siri's listening.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's what really has to happen is how do all those connection neural points get made?
Mhm. I mean, I
Exactly
think
right. All right. So, Barbara, let's stay on this topic of what is not working. Anything else that you're seeing that people are doing that they shouldn't be doing in your world?
Well, one is when someone contacts me, it's a potential client and all this sort of stuff, and I start digging into I dig pretty deep into their business structure and things. They're still too siloed. They're not looking within. And what do I need to do to modernize or change up how we're practicing internally at my company so that we can look different, act different, and behave differently outside and actually
Mm,
get somewhere?
fantastic. All right. So then let's now focus in on the secret here. Your secret sauce, something that you're bringing to your clients that you're just not seeing that's giving your clients a competitive advantage.
So, what I'm seeing in my clients that is working is continuing to do marketing and sales working together because one cannot do the job well enough than the other. And when I run into the resistance is, well, that's not how it works here. We go off and do this and that. Well, when we start working together, aha moments start because they realize carts are coming before horses, things are being done in sort of a backward way, and they're like impediments to their own success. So, as marketing and sales can work closer together, one is feeding them good information about leads and things, and the other one is gaining information about sort of a soft voice of customer, but how can we tailor messaging more appropriately to who I'm calling on?
And I want you to stay there because this is something that's really important. Most companies, when they have a value proposition, they literally have one proposition,
Mhm.
right? How important is it to write that message to different audiences? And would you say that that is something that people aren't doing that they should be doing?
And I call it personas, right?
Mhm.
Because every persona that you might run into, because you never know in any institution if they're going to say, you need to go talk to this person, you got to pull out your mental Rolodex. Oh, they're a technology specialist in radiology. So I have to have the value prop of what would it mean to them? Like less maintenance, less service, less overhead, sharper, imaging with radiology. What is it going to be versus I'm talking to a contracting agent? How easy is it to do contracting with me? I'm on these GPOs or I'm not. And what are some key things that matches what that contracting agent really is looking for in their organization? Because they're all a little different. So you
All
do
right.
have to have value props for different folks and different speak.
Mhm.
All right. So now, because we've listened to Barbara, and if you're not working with Barbara and you have that one value proposition for your whole company, and it's either resonating with part of your audience, but not all, or you want help really constructing a powerful and effective plan, reach out to Barbara. But now let's
Mhm.
assume that Barbara does her magic, and now we have the right value propositions and the right messaging to the right audience. Now we're going to start marketing, right? And that's why we're going
Yeah.
to bring Scott in now, right? So Scott, I would hire, and I have hired Scott to represent me and my clients and my companies because
Mhm.
he's going to help me get in front of the right audience at the right time with the right message. So Scott, let's start talking about things in the digital marketing world that
Mhm.
people are doing because they feel now they have to do it. Finally, the world is caught on. Hey, this stuff isn't a fad. We should be
Yeah.
doing this, and maybe we should be cutting the budgets and trade shows, and maybe we should be cutting the direct mail and the things that
Mhm.
aren't really producing ROI and now shifting to digital. So everybody's doing it, and there's a lot of noise. What is the garbage that's being out there that people should stop doing?
Organic social media. So we see all these companies where it's like it's like, hey, we got on LinkedIn and we're posting stuff on LinkedIn. And I feel like a jerk because I'm like, you're wasting your time. Like you're not a complete waste, but the way that the algorithms work inside LinkedIn, Facebook, any of the social media channels, they know you're a business and they have no interest in allowing company X, Alexander Medical, to get any eyeballs outside of the bare minimum that they have to allow you to stay on a platform for free. And so as a result, what we tend to see in sort of this sort of like first generation of digital efforts is, hey, we're just going to start posting things organically on social media because we think that that's going to make a difference. Well, somewhere between, we don't know the exact numbers, but call it between 2 and 10% of your existing followers will see a post that you make when you post it on LinkedIn or Facebook. And so the things to know there is like, number one, it's like it generally starts off on the lower side and only gets to 10% if you actually see engagement. So call it, 2 to 5% is probably more realistic of the people that are already following you or your company. And so as a result, you're sending this out, and what's happening is like your employees are seeing it. Your competitors are seeing it. Like that's who's seeing your ads through organic means. You really have to take that next step, and you've got to have you have to put budget behind it. Because at the end of the day, Facebook, 97, 98% of their revenue comes from advertising. Google, 97, 98% of their stuff comes from advertising. LinkedIn, a little lower, but still it's high percentages. And the reality is, if you're not playing in that game, you're being crowded out by the companies that are. So that's probably the number one thing that I see that folks are doing, and they think they're doing the right thing, and they're just straight up not.
Gotcha. And all right, so that's interesting. What else are you seeing that people are just doing a bunch of things and they're trying? I mean, they're literally trying and they're just not seeing results, and they should stop. What is something else in digital that you're seeing?
Yeah, the other thing, and this goes back to, here's what I would say is, don't think about digital as any different than just good business practices. So everything that Barbara just said about segment your customers, understand what they care about, talk to them in the language that they want to receive, and do it in channels in which they want to receive it, that's marketing 101. And so what we tend to see is our industry is underdeveloped in terms of what good marketing looks like inside medical devices. We've got a number of clients that have come into like the health tech space and more like SaaS, software as a service type stuff, that came from outside of healthcare. And there, people understand that you have different segments, you have different personas inside each client type, right? And you have these things, and you have to tell the story to the language that they want. And we just have never had to do that in medtech. And so that's the thing that we see is like, you got to quit doing that. This idea that Dr. Smith is going to go and run with the thing into, the value analysis committee and then like stamp her foot and say, get me this or else whatever, like that's gone. And so we have to think about, how do we tell the story in a more appropriate way so that everything that's being received is being received like this is intended to me, as opposed to this is a general message.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem that people have, right, is when they feel like, oh, well, I'm doing digital media and it's not working, so I guess maybe I have to do more of it, so I'll turn my budget up. That's the problem, right? I'm not spending enough.
Yep.
Right. And so you end up doing bad practice more often, hoping that you're going to be getting a better result. And so effort is not necessarily going to get you the better outcome.
Yep.
Right. You have to know what you're doing and then do a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that we're just a magnifying glass or a megaphone. And so if you're saying the wrong thing, if you're speaking in Greek, it doesn't matter how loud you say it, nobody's going to understand what you're doing. Right. And it's the same thing. We have just an example. This is a specialty pharmacy, and they're fantastic people. They just came to us not too long ago, and they've been spending high, just short of 6 figures a month on their ad spend, which is astronomically high. And we cut it dramatically because it's like, why would you don't spend that much money until you know you're getting a return? Like, let's figure out what the appropriate level is. There is an acceptable amount, like a minimum amount that you need to spend, but coming in and putting in, I was talking to another large medtech company today, like you don't need a $5 million budget to be able to see that the stuff works. You can get there over time, but you can do things that are much smaller to prove the wheel, to like get the wheel going. And then you sort of build on success as opposed to just like burning the dollars. So.
Before we move to what's working, just, when somebody, there might be some smaller companies that are out there, right? And they're
Mhm.
at the point where they're starting to think about, hey, maybe I should bring on a professional like Scott to help me with my social media. But I'm a small company. I don't have a big budget. All
Right.
right. What's like just if you're just starting out and
Yeah.
you're a small guy and you want to get off the ground, what's
Mhm.
a reasonable budget we should be shooting for? I mean, obviously it's got to be deployed the right way, but what's some range that you can give us?
Your magic number is 10% of target revenue. So if we're trying to grow, $1 million, we want $1 million, then you should be allocating 10% of that into your budget. And that, generally speaking, is being offset against not hiring a sales professional. Like instead of 3 reps, you hire 2. Instead of 10 reps, you hire 9. And a lot of times those numbers work out so that your territories are a little bit bigger. The reps are getting more opportunities and they can be more sort of further down the funnel, but call it 10%, 8 to 12 is, if you want a bigger range.
Totally makes sense. Thank you. All right. So let's work now on the magic that Scott's bringing, right? So
Yeah.
what's the things that you're doing for your clients that are basically getting the difference that's making a difference? What is it?
Yeah. Um, it's this. It's my beautiful face. We put my face on the ads. No, I mean, all kidding aside, it really comes down to providing value. Like that's the thing that we tend to see. So as I think about what that looks like, again, these are human beings. Like that's the thing that I think folks lose when we're talking about like email campaigns, we're talking about LinkedIn. Like there's a human being on the other side of that. And so it's not about what does the algorithm need. It's more about how do we make sure that that human being has an interaction with our company or our brand that's going to draw them closer to buying our stuff. That's what we're trying to do. And so if we think about the buying process, I don't, if I wanted to buy a new car, if I have a Toyota Tundra with 175,000 miles on it, at some point it's going to crap out on me. I'm going to buy a new car. I am not going to go down to the Toyota dealership to learn about what are the models that are out there. What are the different aspects I should care about? No, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to talk to some friends. Like that's what I'm going to do. And so what's working is thinking about those conversations that Mike, your team is having, that a sales professional is having, and thinking about how do we democratize some of that information. And it's, by the way, that scares the sin out of some salespeople because they're like, I want to control the conversation, and I'll get to that. But we want to think about how do we be seen not as a vendor, but as an expert in the space. And by doing that and educating the audience, you change the dynamic of the relationship. So that's a key piece of it. The other thing that we're doing is, and I'm having this conversation a ton, is they're consistent. So it's about consistency. Like this idea of like random acts of marketing is a recipe for failure. And it's like if think about it just like fitness, right? So y'all just saw me chow down on a bunch of pizza, right? Saw that fitness pizza in my mouth. The key to being fit is not going out and doing 1,000 push-ups in a day and then like waiting for it to happen. No, it's what's going to happen is you're not going to see any results. You're going to be sore as all get out for a while. You need to think about what are the things you can do with consistency to build up your brand. So there's that thing of just like getting in the cadence and then getting specific on the segments to which you're talking. So a lot of products are going to have multiple audiences that are involved. Some will be your sort of buying champions, like a doctor or a clinician. Others will be buying influencers like nursing or maybe finance. But thinking about what are those human beings going through in your buying process, and then looking at how you can map as much of that buying process to non-human beings as possible, and then tying it all back into the CRM. So there's a lot, but those are the things that we're seeing really make a difference for folks.
That's all good stuff. And I love what you said about consistency over intensity, right?
Yes.
I think whether you're going to the gym or whatever outcome you're trying to achieve, a lot of
Mhm.
people are like, okay, I'm getting started. It's a new year, and
Yep.
I'm going to go hog wild prospecting, or I'm going to go hog wild in the gym, and
Yep.
then you exhaust yourself. You're like, oh my god, I hate this, right? Because
Yeah. Yep.
the intensity has just been too much. Whereas all you're looking for is consistency to get the
Mhm.
outcome that you're looking for.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so Mike, it's time to turn to you
Yeah.
now, and we can turn the tables of what in your world is not working today.
So, you know, for my fellow professional inside salespeople, and there are very few of us out there. And what I mean by that is the biggest mistake that people are making in inside sales is thinking you just put people on the telephone with product knowledge,
Mhm.
and that's going to work. And so what they do is they put customer service people in the role, or they put, people with good personalities on the interview. Let me tell you right now, the phone or virtual technology is a different animal. If you're talking about somebody who's making calls, think about what you're asking them to do. You're asking them to make 100 calls a day where 90% of them are getting dumped into voicemail. And then they have to get through it, be skilled enough to get through gatekeepers. And then that one or two or three conversations per hour, they get a decision maker with completely different experiences and time limits and whatever. And they have to construct a conversation that's going to generate opportunity and leads and business. That is a skill that is, I dare anybody to do that who's listening and think you can do it just because you got a great personality. You might be able to do it once with one dial, but do it, to Scott's point, consistently, day in and day out. So I think the underappreciation of the job of what we're asking inside salespeople to do and the skill required to do it well is the single biggest problem with inside sales, because when you hire the right people with the
Mhm.
right DNA, with the love of the phone or the love of virtual technology like this, they light it up. And for people that are just doing it because it's a job, because there are no outside sales jobs anymore, and they're forced to do it because the times have changed. Again, if it is it passion or purpose,
Mhm.
right? Function or purpose. And if it's your function to make calls, it's a lot different than my purpose is to engage people with great technologies. So I think we really, as an industry, need to wrap our brains around this, because post-COVID, everybody had to use the phone and everybody has to use virtual technology today. And everybody's realizing, wow, it's powerful and it's here to stay. But now think about the abundance of just absolute crappy sales calls that are being made to
Mhm.
doctors and surgeons and lab managers and pharmacists. They're getting bombarded. And so if you don't have a message or a language pattern that's different than this one. Hi, my name's Mike. I represent the latest breakthrough in whatever technology or med device has ever seen, and I'd like to, they're already gone. It's
Mhm.
like, hi, my name's Mike. I'm with a company that you don't know, and I'm going to sell you something. That language pattern is building resistance, and it's just get me off the phone. So what you need to do is you need to start crafting really smart, intelligent, and creative ways to engage dialogue that are completely not traditional. Like some of the language patterns that I develop for clients, we never say the client's company name until way later into the presentation, because they don't care about you and your company name and how long you've been in business and the expertise. What they care about is you understand their problem better than they do. You actually called with that knowledge and have displayed that, and that you have a solution for their exact situation, and you can articulate that in seconds.
Mhm.
So that's what we need to do. And that's what we're bringing to the market, is a fresh approach to making calls enjoyable. They're not sales calls. They're meaningful conversations with people that either A, build business or build relationships, or you find out that you're just not a good fit for that person.
Mhm. Hey, Mike, what percentage of companies do you think have an inside sales organization to speak of?
It's a good question. If I had to guess right now, med device overall, I'd say about 40% of folks have inside sales dedicated, where they have at least a few people on the phone. And then you probably have another 20% that are outsourcing their model
Mhm.
to other folks. But there's still a tremendous amount of folks that aren't doing it. And again, the ones that are doing it are just pathetically doing it, most of
That was
them.
gonna be the next thing is like, what percentage are doing it well?
Honestly, there's a handful that I know
Yeah.
of personally because like I could tell you, like McKesson, they have a big. We actually had Tom Whalen on our podcast, and
Mhm.
Tom's running hundreds of millions of dollars and doing it very, very well. But
Mhm.
he's an exception in
Yeah.
that big company world. The big companies think that they're be all end all and they're it. And we've seen the fall in many other industries of the giants fall to the small
Mhm.
guys. Why? Because of marketing and innovation. So
Mhm.
I think, and the good news is for my fellow small businesses that are out there, we have this medium has equalized the playing field because no longer is it an advantage where, the rep can just walk in there because he's got a big name. They don't want people to see them to walk in these facilities anymore. If
Mhm.
you can pick up the phone and articulate that you can demonstrate your expertise quickly and efficiently and professionally, you can level the playing field.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I
That
think you've kind of told us some of what's going well while you talked about things that aren't. But are there any other things that today are going really well as far as I was thinking about how well prepared are those manufacturers or suppliers that are coming to you and wanting to do inside sales?
So, I think they're prepared mentally to do it, right? In terms of they realize that they need to do it. But I just, again, this whole thing about you have one shot. I mean, you get that decision maker on the phone. It's so hard that when they actually pick up the phone or they actually show up for a virtual meeting. Think about it. You have this person whose time is extremely valuable, and now they're giving you that time. And so, with this one shot, if you are not brilliant on that one shot, then you're going to lose. And so, I think the other thing that companies that are succeeding that I'm seeing that are doing well versus the companies that are not doing well is just high intensity training. It should be, and I challenge anybody to watch your salespeople's presentations, listen to the cold calls, and listen to how one person does it one way and another person does it another way. And some people inherently will do it very well, and some people will be terrible. But why not just have a consistent way of presenting? You think about it, the State of the Union is probably the biggest speech of any speech that's given every year, or one of the biggest
Mhm.
speeches. And think about if the president missteps or misstates something. How important is that? He could create a war, or she could create a war. They
Mhm.
could create the stock market to tumble just on the sheer words. So if that speech can be that prepared, we already know that we're going to be getting, I'm not interested, the doctor's busy, we have another company we're working with. These shouldn't be like, I'm going to think about the response on the fly. How about you dismantle that brilliantly so that it passes your own logic test before you even make the representation to the customer, and you'll get a much greater result. So training and being prepared for that one shot is another thing that people absolutely need to be doing today.
Yep.
And
Any
that's
other
all I got to
wise
say about
words of
that.
wisdom you might
That's
have
right.
to
Life's like a
impart?
box of chocolates.
Yeah. Box of chocolates.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So that is it. We talked about our three different worlds. We talked
Yep.
about what's working and what's not working. So
Mhm.
let's just go takeaways. So, Barbara, again, your world, what do you want to leave people with in your world?
What I want to leave people in the world is all of things that we've said, kind of take it to heart and try to figure out internally, am I doing those things? Am I not doing those things? Where do I need to think? But one of the things I sort of circle, because I make little notes and things, is what's been really helpful is being sort of available, and I call it being a thought partner to folks, because maybe they just need to have someone to talk to look at and sort of feel through, are we doing this, are we doing that, or whatever, and being there as a thought partner. So I do a lot of they're allowing me to sit in on national sales meetings or attend them live, anything like that, where the sales folks can get frustrated very easily and they want to say, I was in this situation, I don't know how to handle it. And internally, you may not know, but through a lot of thought partner sessions, you might find out. So keep learning.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, I think the more as we were having this conversation, I think if we could extract out like our each individual specific expertise, and just focus on like the overall message, it was incredibly consistent. And it's basically treat your prospect like a human being. Talk to them about the things that they want to talk about in the way that they want to talk about it. Have a personalized conversation with them and be available as a human being. Even if you're using digital technology, you're using the phone, you're going through some sort of value analysis committee, like, to me, at the end of the day, it's like, be a human being who's actually compassionate and considerate of the other person's needs and wants. And like, it's almost like doors open up. And to me, that's the name of the game in all this stuff. I think we can get lost behind the tactics of, how am I doing this? And Mike, to like what you were talking about with like, you get one moment because that other person took 15 seconds to actually answer the phone and then to give you a short snippet of time to be like, what can you do for me? And to me, like, be a human being, understand who that person is, and then satisfy their needs, satisfies your needs 10x more than going the other way around. So to me, that's the big takeaway from the conversation. Be a human being.
Excellent. Thank you. And my parting shot is, I've been in business now for an entrepreneur for 30 years. And I can tell you that every single year, it gets harder and harder because things are changing at such a frantic pace. There's more competition than ever. There's global competition. When I first started, there were like 3 manufacturers of needles and 3 manufacturers of pumps and 3 IV solutions, right? There was like 3. And so just by being in the business, you got market share. Yep. Well, today, each and every one of us, we're fighting for share. And good isn't good enough, and they're happy with the incumbent. So you have to give them a reason to switch. So if I was going to climb Mount Everest, if that was a goal of mine, I would want to make sure I had a guide that's been to Mount Everest that's going to help me eliminate the chances of dying and failing and achieve what I want to do, which is actually climb the mountain. Well, what I suggest and what I do as a CEO is I hire those guides. And so what I would suggest is you don't have time to learn this stuff. I don't have time to learn digital marketing. I don't have time to learn value analysis. So either hire Scott or hire Barbara or go out there and vet some other professionals, but bring in people that know what they're doing. You need a heck of a lot less of them when they know what they're doing. They're a lot more fun to manage, and you'll get the results that you're paying for. So that is my parting shot. So this is the MedTech Experts, folks. We were so happy to be with you today. And if you did like the show, just push the like button for us. It makes us feel good. Also share it with anybody that you'd like. We'd love to just spread the word. So we wish you all a very happy new year, and we'll see you next time on the MedTech Experts.